Broadcasting live from the IRSMedic studios, it's Parental Advisory. We're live on Parental Advisory. We are now on part 3 of our three-part series about tax problems that expats may encounter. Part 1, we talked about CSEDs.
The statute of limitations that the IRS has to collect on you, and the fact that if you leave the country, that time period stops. Therefore, the IRS has forever to collect from you.
Forever. Part 2, we talked about disclosures, FBARs, also the IRS being crazy.
Right. We talked about how the voluntary disclosure program really, for most people, has nothing to do with criminal exposure.
Right.
Their real exposure is the assessment of arbitrary FBAR penalties. And I mentioned some cases where they were arbitrarily imposed and upheld in the federal judiciary. So really that offshore programs are more of an FBAR amnesty than a voluntary disclosure, if you would, to avoid criminal charges. Even though maybe 10% of our clients are those who were engaged in some sort of tax evasion.
Yep. Now we've got approximately 8 million American expats. When we talk about expats, we are talking about U.S. citizens living abroad, not expatriates. They're already grappling with offshore account compliance issues, worldwide taxation. So now there's a new issue they have to be concerned about. Not just expats. This will affect all U.S. taxpayers. But for them, I think it's a bigger deal because if you're living overseas, your passport is like your driver's license squared. You need your passport to open a bank account, to rent a car, to get a hotel room, to register your child for school.
If you're in business, you're not signing any contract without that. You're going to have to provide it, and it's going to reference it. You're going to have a copy of it, people know that. And I think there's a certain sensitivity. Your passport, you don't have a life without it. You cannot live overseas without one.
No, and especially if you think about traveling. If you're in Europe, especially, to get from country to country, generally with your passport,
right?
It's
You're
pretty
doing
easy.
it with your passport,
but
right?
now you're going to be pretty confined if you get this taken away.
Yeah.
So let's quickly talk about a couple quick facts. We've already had, I think, 1 or 2 podcasts and articles about this, but it's a big deal, and this one is aimed specifically at expats. So what we know is as of December 3rd, Bill HR 22 was signed by the president. It's now officially law.
And this is the FAST Act. It started as the Drive Act and morphed into the FAST Act. So what are they trying to tell us?
It's a highway bill that somehow this got tacked on to the end.
Drive fast.
Drive fast.
So there's your excuse if you ever get caught speeding. Well, it was
the drive. HR 22.
come on. I was watching the evolution of it. I don't know. It's plausible.
Now, what we know is that this is going to take effect in January 1st, but we don't know really.
Yeah.
They have a ton of things to hammer down.
Yeah, I would say, the law goes in effect January 1st, but does that mean on January 1st, if your passport could be revoked, will it be for other reasons besides tax, I would say? There's no way that they're going to get this enforced. I don't know how long it's going to take. And sort of the quicker it goes, probably the less helpful it will be because there are some ambiguities. We're not quite sure of what is going to satisfy them because you don't have to pay your tax bill in full. That's what we just want to pay. If you do owe, the bills, if you owe $50,000 or more and current debt, we have some fun analysis that small amounts can get over $50,000 very quickly, and we'll have that upcoming.
Oh, yeah. But this will be, I think, learn as you go, where we're going to find out exactly, if you're trying to rent a car, are they going to take your passport there? We doubt it.
No. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Because they don't, but anyone who has access to the database and an agreement,
right?
They might say, or like, okay, this is it. We'll take it now, but that's it. You're going home.
Right. So the new law states the IRS can submit certifications of, we love this, seriously delinquent taxpayers to the Secretary of the Treasury, who then passes it to Secretary of State, and they can then deny such a person passport if they apply. They can revoke a passport that's already been issued. They consider a seriously delinquent taxpayer to be someone who owes $50,000 or more in federal taxes, penalties, and interest, and they're not currently in a program to pay the IRS back. So if you're in a program right now, don't freak out. It's the people that...
Well, we're actually, Mel, you might want to freak out.
Oh.
We're not sure.
Depends.
Because in a program, not currently in a program, that whole program is not exactly defined. We know installment agreement counts, and we know offer and compromise counts, but there's also the hardship status, which it appears as if it doesn't count so far from what we see. Now, the IRS may change that. They may say, well, look, we're not going to enforce that. It's too much. We're just going to say that counts. And they have the discretion. Again, they could create law with a website FAQ, as we discussed in our earlier episode. So certainly they could just say, yeah, we just don't have the resources to do this. Currently not collectible hardship status. That's where you pay the IRS nothing. That might be acceptable. Right now, it doesn't look it, but again, things change.
Now, two things I want to mention. One, very quickly, some people say, well, why don't they just, all those overseas people, why don't they just pay their taxes? They may not know they owe taxes. We already talked about in a previous podcast, there's issues sometimes with the IRS inputting overseas addresses, so they may not even know that they have tax issues. The second thing is, you may sit back and go, $50,000. That seems like a lot. That seems pretty hard to hit. Not so much. Living overseas, you're going to have much more complicated tax returns, and if you file incorrectly, the debts and penalties, they're going to start to add up quick. It can be every year that you have this penalty.
Right.
And all of a sudden you turn around and it's $50,000. You have to worry about foreign life insurance. If you have a non-citizen spouse, FBARs, earn income more than $100,000 in a foreign country. These all create really complicated tax returns.
And you
don't
don't
need
need
screw up
Right.
in a
You
heartbeat.
could be completely middle class and hit that $50,000 easily. And here's an example. Let's say you have that foreign retirement account that is required to have a 3520, 3520A, either one to be filed, and they're just doing a regular audit for 3 years. Oh, you didn't file that. That's $10,000. Okay, so we're up to 30. Okay, now let's just say you have, in addition, you work for yourself overseas, and it's a foreign corporation. IRS says, oh, where's your Form 5471? And you're looking at them saying, what do you mean? Oh, you didn't file that? Oh, that penalty is $10,000 a year too. 3 times. You're just at $60,000. There hasn't even been a tax assessed.
No.
So, wow, I read
an article
quick.
about a couple that lives overseas, and basically what the husband makes is equal to about $65,000 US, and the wife was about $11,000 US, and they had quickly amassed $65,000 in penalties. So, I mean, and that's not a ton of money, $76,000 a year. And yet it just exploded. And now
I think
here they are.
There's a fundamental, overwhelming amount of ignorance by most people walking this earth, most people in the U.S. who are simply clueless as to how the IRS operates and what your risks are overseas. And when I see comments, when we were watching the bill being passed, people comment, why don't they just pay their taxes? It's
so
a good
irritating.
thing. Oh, just shut up. This is your opportunity to shut up because you do not know what you're talking about. These are just regular people who happen to step on this third rail of compliance. These are things you don't have to deal with. Because you're in the U.S. and someone's always taking care of your taxes for you. You get, and this is where it is. You get a W-2 form from your employer. There's a line right on your 1040. And even though your tax return is incredibly simple, I bet you I could take a look at it and say, hey, you know what, dummy? You screwed up here. Why did you pay your taxes? And so now you're going from something incredibly, completely different where you have to create your own income statement to input into the tax return. There's no form to say, oh, let me put this here, here, and here. I mean, a regular tax return.
And they could be in foreign languages.
Right. Oh, yeah. And translated in. And a foreign language. And also, there's no really U.S. equivalent to it. It's when you have an Indian certificate of deposit, you don't get anything until it ends, till the 3-year term is up. You don't get anything. But the IRS says, well, every year you really are earning interest.
Oh, crap.
You're like, well, I got to calculate my interest on something I don't know. Yeah. And it's just so stupid because, honestly, you don't have a right to that interest on that year. Because if you took that money out, you lose it. You really don't get it till the end.
That's so friggin' stupid.
Oh, yeah. So that's where, people just, that's just how when someone says, why don't they just pay their taxes? That's how you can just stop listening to them because they have nothing important
Don't
to
waste
add.
your time.
Yeah.
All right. So what you did is you worked with some people here in the firm and you said, all right, let's try to figure out some really real life examples.
Yeah.
It's this year you started with this much debt. How long before it gets up to $50,000?
Yeah.
It's a great bit of information. We're going to get it on the IRSMedic website as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, so we're going to upload this And so Michelle Wynn helped me with this. And this is a program that we use. Tax and Interest is the program. It's a CD we subscribe to. And because calculating interest with the IRS and penalties is so complicated, you just can't do it. You could if you had endless amount of time. It's just easier for tax professionals to use the software. So that's what we used, and that's what we'll be uploading. You'll see Tax Interest version 2014.4. This is the latest one we have. We keep getting updates. So we tried it. So I asked Michelle. I said, "What? I want to end up with a tax debt of over $50,000, and let's just assume my tax debt is 10 years old."
Okay.
So 2006, how low of a liability is it that would spring to over $50,000?
Okay.
So what if I left, in 2006, I said, oh, I owe the IRS this money. I'm going to leave. I'm going to frustrate them from collections. What is that number? And we came up, we put in $28,000. And so with penalty, and we only put one penalty in there, the failure to pay.
Okay.
We didn't put failure to file. We assumed you filed. We didn't put any other penalties, significant unreporting, anything like that. Just the one that you didn't pay. That's basically it. That ends up to be $50,520. Assuming we assume a tax due April 15th, 2006 and April 15th, 2016.
Wow.
$50,000, $28,000. And again, that 10-year period that normally would be in place isn't there. So it's $50,520 going up. It's only getting more and more.
Wow.
So, and let me just see if I have the breakdown for what amount, just quick penalties. I think it was, we have interest $15,520, and then the late pay penalty is $7,000 on that. So that's really where you get crippled. Now, do you want to know what's really interesting?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So let's imagine that I'm myself.
Okay.
And it's 1996, and it's April 15th, 1996.
Okay.
And let's assume that, and those of you listening to the podcast or introduction, I was able to get written consent for
The music.
That was my dear friend who wrote it, and I was in the band. If you listen to the bass, that's me. Woo-hoo. I was in a rock and roll band. And let's assume the rock and roll band was a little bit more successful than it was.
Okay.
And I had a tax liability of $15,000, and I filed my return. And I said, you know what?
Screw the man.
Hey, Phil, let's go live overseas, man. We'll just play rock and roll. And, and I want to just frustrate the ability. And
we'll pick up hot chicks.
Yeah, Europe, man.
Beers.
We're big in Europe. We're big. And so let's say, 1996, I owe $15,000 to the IRS.
Okay.
Kind of, what would be an okay car back then. So, all right, I'm smart in the IRS. And now I'm saying, all right, well, I know the IRS hasn't been told. I know the IRS has told the statute of limitations. How bad is this? I want to know. Now it's 2016. What did my $15,000 from 1996 turn into? You probably know the answer because
you told me.
I told you. That is now $51,143. I mean, that's going to give you a bad rock and roll day. You're just going to say, oh, wow, bummer, man.
I'm stuck in Luxembourg. It's such a small country.
So
the borders feel so small.
Yeah, it's crazy because here it is. Your interest, is $32,393. Your late pay is only $3,750 because you actually, your balance is based on what your balance was when you didn't do it. So that's how we get to the $51,000. And this is what we found out that people overseas, the IRS has been coded these cases. These tax debts are still there, and people are blown away with how big and out of control they got.
And knowing the IRS and their love for having press releases, look how much money we made with FBARs and OVDB. I think with the passport bill, they're potentially, if they have the time, going to go after people, because then they can have a press release saying, look how many millions of dollars we brought in revenue.
Yeah.
So,
and it's really millions, because the average person thinks, there's no difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. And it's like, well, actually, there's a difference of, 1,000%? It's the difference between a 1,000-aire and a millionaire. Mm-hmm. That's the difference?
Yeah.
Oh, $1 million. Whoa, that's really something. All right. Way to go, guys.
Yep.
Way to go.
So there is potential for them to go after even some of the older debts. If they have to.
Right. And
we've already been getting people contacting us here at the firm concerned about their passports.
Yeah, it's really, and I think this is the most important thing, is that, my experience from doing this is that the majority of people, when there's an IRS debt, they don't hire you until they have to. Mm-hmm. They don't want to hire us. They don't want to go, I don't want to go full tax attorney until I really have to. And so they try, one of these resolution places that will resolve your problem for $495. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Or the typical ones are like, oh, well, $2,500, $3,500. $4,500. That's where they tend to be. They just sort of figured that's the price point, just because that's what people are willing to pay. But it's like, that's not really what it might take a little bit more to get the job done. That's all. So there's a lot of people out there who will wait.
Yes.
They wait. And one of the things people don't realize is the tax resolution industry has been taking a hit, because the IRS limits its collection activity because they don't have the staff. It has half the revenue officers it did, the field collections, so it's doing half that. And then the centralized collections, they're doing less of that because they have less employees. They intentionally hold back levy notices because they know if we issue all these levy notices, we already have a 2-hour hold time, we'll overburden the system. So they wait. So collections, enforced collections is at an all-time low. So that is the thing that drives people to hire a tax attorney. So they just, that pressure isn't there. So people are like, yeah, the IRS, I'm not going to worry about them. Yeah, I guess I figured them out. It's like, no, they know exactly where you are. They're intentionally not levying you because they can't handle the workload when you decide to get off your butt and do something about it. That's why. So you're not getting away with anything. And by the way, as one of the factors that comes into whether or not they're going to give you attention or not is where you are in that CSED. They see, oh my God, we have a few little bit of time left. Oh, you'll get attention. But they're looking at it like, oh man, we got years. You know what? Hey, you know what? They don't even care, because waiting for you, it can work.
Build up the penalties.
Well, right. Well, they're building up the tax, and the chances are that the economy kind of stinks now. We're getting offer and compromises through nobody has money. It's a great time to owe it. So this is where we want to settle. So strategically for the IRS, we'll just let these people wait. And then when it gets closer, we're going to assume the economy is going to improve. I guess it couldn't, but chances are it really should. Then there'll be more ability to collect. So because you were sitting on your butt saying, ha, 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 ooh, I'm getting one over on the IRS. They're like, yeah, we knew, and we're going to wait for you to have it. And then, and this whole bill is supposed to pay for more revenue officers. So now instead of getting that impersonal attention from automated collections, there'll be someone personally assigned to your case because you were just sitting around, oh, I'm getting away with it.
Well, it's hard, I think, for people living overseas, especially now, too, if they have tax issues. All the IRS offices overseas are closed. So you don't have that additional tool. I'm not sure how helpful they were in the first place, but at least you could talk to somebody and try to figure out what's going on. Now they don't have that.
It's just, the entire system is burdened by this incredible compliance. And we haven't even talked about Obamacare.
Oh, that's a whole other podcast.
Podcasts.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about how crazy all that is. So really when people don't tend to take action until they have to, is my point. And so when, we're getting a decent amount of calls right now, okay? And that what tells me is that oh my God, we are going to be insanely busy. We're one of the few firms that does both OVDP or offshore disclosures and resolution. If we're this busy right now in December, it's, Christmas is next week.
Yeah.
And we've been really busy. I am frightened for the millions of people. I don't know, millions, but hundreds of thousands.
Well, 8 million live overseas.
And I would say, right, and there's going to be, there's got to be hundreds of thousands of people who are going to owe more than $50,000. And I mean millions of people in non-compliance.
Right,
When that happens, first of all, you're going to have a hard time finding someone. We might, when it happens, if it's September of 2016, I don't know. I could be wrong. Sometimes, I'm wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things where I'm thinking, oh yeah, things are going to go crazy. And it doesn't happen. So I'm not saying saying for sure, but man, if it starts moving, if one person is getting their passport revoked, that means 1,000 are.
And what stinks too is if the industry sees how busy this is causing everyone, then they start doing we'll resolve it for $1,500. We'll resolve it for $900. And you don't want to screw around with those firms too, because one big thing about this is if you get everything taken care of, you get your passport, you will say you go into an offer and compromise, you're making your payments. If you default on that program, your passport then goes away again.
There it goes.
So
right.
if you put your life in somebody's hands for $1,200 and they say, oh, we'll take care of this.
Yeah.
And they screw up. You sign that tax form.
Yeah.
It's your responsibility.
You said you were going to do it.
The minute you sign that tax, it is, or the form, you're saying, yep, I looked at this and everything's correct. And then you're going to go into default because it's not done correctly and you could potentially lose your passport anyway.
Right, and you're in a worse...
And then you have to find an actual real...
To hopefully undo all the damage, but you're not going to experience a savings because of that.
Yep.
That, you need, when you owe that, you need a professional workout, not something that basically what they do is they take your own, they have you fill out the forms and fill it in. You could have done that yourself. You could have done it wrong yourself.
It's true.
And probably in a quicker amount of time, definitely for cheaper. So it's just, this is not the time. And I think, people get a little bit lackadaisical about the IRS and within a lot of the advertisements, I've said this before, the Ronnie Deutsch ads, made it seem like a good thing you owed the IRS money because now you have a chance to save all this money. And it doesn't really work like that. When you're actually trying to solve it, it's like, oh, wow, this is kind of nasty. I have to make some adjustments in life. And no matter what it is, it's not a thing where like, haha, I got one over on the IRS, because that's what the IRS doesn't want as a policy, because if people knew that, everyone would say, well, why am I going to comply with you? You guys give everyone a break. I'll just go and I'll just go screw off and do whatever I want. The IRS catches wind of that. They're just saying, no, we're not going to deal with it. We don't have to grant you a damn thing. You can go straight to hell. That's what they can do. So, this is really not the time. Generally, it's never the time to say, if you owe the IRS money, that doesn't put you in the driver's seat. That just doesn't, okay? They can do a lot of things, and they could do a lot of things wrong. They could file a lien when they are not supposed to file a lien. They could levy your bank account when they're not supposed to levy your bank account. Happens all the time. They make mistakes all the time. And some people are like, oh, yeah, we just didn't code that case correctly.
Just didn't.
Well,
okay.
All right, thanks. Well, you kind of made us look a little stupid over here. Thanks for that.
You just potentially ruin that guy's life.
And of course, it's a Friday afternoon. It always happens too. You're like, man, when 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, 3 to oh God, let's hope. That's where we're always checking on. We're always checking. That's why we tend to be proactive because we don't trust the IRS.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna code this case. Like, yeah, all right, we're gonna watch you because. We want to make sure.
Before we wrap up, I just want to mention you had said being proactive, and I thought this was really great advice. I only saw in the millions of articles I've read in one of them, mentioning if you're a business that has employees living abroad, notify them of the new rules. They may not be aware of it. It may be worth a mass email or a mass communication to every employee to say, hey guys, we're not privy to your personal tax information.
And really take a look at that, and I think when we have it up on our website, take a look at $15,000 from 1996 is now over $50,000. There it is, right there.
Yeah.
Let them know, because a lot of them could be, maybe they weren't in a rock and roll band, but maybe they were doing something else. It's like, it wasn't a big deal, and they kind of forgot about it. Like, it can't be. It's $18,000. 19 can't be that much.
No.
Then whoa, oh my God, I'm going to lose my passport.
Yep.
So that's quite easy to do. So I think it's just, for a lot of people, it's getting, trying to do this now. We're already getting busy. If we're getting busy, I think everyone else is getting busy. It's picking up. And yeah, if 1,000 people are going to have their passport in one, it's 1,000, it's 10,000.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of people getting in line. And I think as you were referencing before, and then what happens in all of this stuff is that the imitators sort of say, hey, wait a second.
Wait.
It looks like, because, if you search FBAR help, you'll get all these FBAR attorneys from no, FBAR attorney dude.
Yes.
Maybe not.
But
maybe
not an actual attorney.
Right.
We just call ourselves attorneys.
Yeah, we call ourselves FBAR attorneys, but we're
story.
not. Right. It was the only URL available. We didn't have a choice. We're not. Right. So there's a lot of those people out there. There's the imitators now in offshore disclosures because they figured here's something these people, generally don't know. So confusing. A taxpayer's in a horrible position to know anything. So their salesperson can say one thing. Oh, wow, this person must know what they're talking about.
It's sad that they probably understand and then play off the fear because I don't think there's a fear like a tax law.
Yeah.
Because it's so convoluted, complicated, and it can ruin your life.
Right. And so, a confident salesperson can easily convince someone, oh, yeah, we're the experts. We've handled this before. We have the appeals office right in the same building as us.
Wow.
This is where all the appeals go, which isn't true. That's actually one of the things they say. Huh. We have the inside line to the appeals office. We're located in Colorado. There's appeals offices across the country. So what's with that? The Colorado one? I'm sure. Yeah, I know there's one in Denver. But there's also ones all around the country.
Colorado's the best, though.
That's the one.
The most popular.
Yeah, right. It's like,
duh.
And we're going to reduce your penalties. That's another one. Because I call these guys because I can't resist. It just sickens me. But I can't, and I haven't done it in years because it's just so upsetting to me to hear them lie to me with that utter confidence. Like, oh my God, you are truly a psychopath.
So then I think we had talked about this once before, a good way to figure out, you're online. How do you know it's an actual attorney? How do you know they're accredited? What are you looking for?
Oh, well, if they're an attorney, they're going to be licensed by a state.
And it should say that somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to say where you're licensed. Everybody does it.
Yep.
And then when you know what? Now you can go, oh, you're licensed by this state. Now you can go to that state's bar examining committee and look up that attorney. Say, oh, yeah. Hey, you know what? The address that they're at matches up the address here. They're legitimate.
That's important.
Yeah, there's an actual attorney responsible who is saying this is a law firm.
Not just maybe offices all over with different phone numbers.
Right. And also we have attorneys working for us, in which I say, well, you know what? Coca-Cola has attorneys working for them.
It's a really good point.
So, does the attorney-client privilege
So don't let that
apply?
Fear sort of,
Yeah, so that's really the way judgment. To do it. And is this a law firm? Because, if you work for one of these resolution firms, that's attorneys working for them, they burn you. What do you got? You sue them in court. Okay, get behind everybody else.
Right.
That's when all tax masters went under, and they all tend to go under. And people are like, oh, what's my chances of recovery? Nothing. How about that? They already spent the money. It's a Ponzi scheme they were running. Guess what? You lost. Sorry.
Yep.
I guess,
So I guess we can wrap up by saying, if you are expat, even none, if you're living here in the United States and you're concerned about passport issues, we've said this, I think, with every episode on any tax issue is don't try to put it off. Don't try to hide it. Don't think you can pull the wool over the IRS's eyes, especially living overseas, because your CSET is now told.
Yeah. And I would just say one thing is I know that some people will be watching this, listening to this, and perhaps after their passport was taken. Okay. And so we're trying to be proactive right now, but the internet will preserve this probably forever and ever. And so they're going to be watching this like, okay, great. You're telling me I screwed up and I should have come to you earlier. Great. Well, thanks a lot. Well, here's the thing. Look, if you did screw up and you should have come to us earlier and your passport was taken, there's help. Okay. It's just not going to, it's not going to be as great as if you do it ahead of time. It's a lot better to get out in front of the problem instead of reacting to a situation. That's really it. But again, we've every messed up problem we've helped out. We've handled things that, went through several attorneys, several IRS employees, no one could get right. Eventually you can get it right. eventually you can. So anyone who's listening there, look, don't give up hope. If you're saying, oh man, I'm great, Brian, I know I'm such a screw up, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Enough of the pity, man. Just take action. That's really
Excellent.
it. Yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for listening to our 3-part series, helping expats. Can't say that with tax. Well, expat tax.
Yeah.
It's a difficult.
Sure.
Just let it roll off your.
Whatever you need to tell yourself. I'm fine with it.
Well, we'll just say that was episode 3. You can go to IRSMedic.com for more information. We're going to post some blogs and articles and that table, and also ParentalAdvisoryShow.com to watch all our past podcasts. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at ParentalAdvisoryShow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.